If you think about it, most teams have tryouts to have a team. Why? Why is that? Because if most teams actually emphasize development, they really wouldn't care about having tryouts. Because if they were development first, they would take any kid and have the emphasis on developing every single kid that they get. But they don't do that. They have tryouts, they cut kids that are not good enough, and they go from there and they enroll in tournaments to win tournaments. And that just further proves that they're all about winning first. We're giving players the opportunity to develop at a way faster rate compared to any other baseball organization there is. I specifically created the Alonzo Baseball League for this, along with giving parents the opportunity to also have a bunch of their time back. Because with the current state of baseball, there's a lot of time commitment that is entailed with it. So with that being said, within our game model, one game lasts 2 hours long, and within the 2 hours, hitters are able to get 12 at bats, and simultaneously pitchers are throwing somewhere between 40 and 60 pitches per game. So with that model, I specifically set it up that way so that pitchers are not overthrowing. They're still giving themselves lots of time to rest in between games, because games are also only going to be 1 day a week, and that's it. Okay, so that's how it is for the pitchers. And in terms of the hitting standpoint, we're allotting hitters to get 12 at bats in a single game, which is just about the same amount of at bats, maybe even more than compared to what a hitter would typically get in like an entire tournament. So an entire weekend tournament's worth of at bats, right? So that's exactly how we set the game model up to be. We structured it to be 2 hours, and we did that purposely so that hitters can get a lot of at-bats in, pitchers can get quality work in as well without also overthrowing. Because the biggest thing that teams emphasize more than anything is obviously winning, because with the game format, the whole purpose is to win the game, right? So sometimes teams will have pitchers throw a little bit over relative to what they probably should be throwing, just for the sake of winning the game. Our game models, we're not really focused on winning. It's just strictly created to give the hitters and the pitchers quality work within a very short amount of time. Now, with that being said as well, we don't have team practices. We fully advocate for hitters and the pitchers to basically spend the rest of the time that they now have to find a personal development coach to help them during the week or weekends of Saturday, Sunday, whichever day that they might not necessarily be playing games. But overall, we just give the players and the parents full opportunity to choose whichever coach they would like to work with, because this is how we essentially give players the opportunity to develop at a way faster rate compared to playing on a team. Because I know, and a lot of other people know, I'm sure parents, if you're watching, you would know this as well. If you have a personal development coach, there's a reason why you're spending extra money to have that coach, despite already having your kid play on a team and they have team practices as well, right? It's very obvious that kids develop at a way, way faster rate when they're working with a personal development coach. So that's exactly what I advocate for, and we as a collective within the Alonzo Baseball League advocate for when it comes to practices, so to speak, okay? So we're only focused on our end on structuring the games, and then for the rest of the time, we give the players, parents, the option to pick whatever coach they would like, whether maybe that's a coach like me, because I'm a personal development coach on the hitting side, or if there's somebody else that you as a parent or as a player have in mind, you have the option, okay? That's completely fine with us. I don't do any pressure selling. Like, I just give everybody the option to do whatever it is that's most convenient for them, whatever it is that they want to do, right? So that is the entire premise of the league, is just to essentially give people a lot of time back on their hands, especially parents, because I know there's a lot of time commitment that goes with it. And then on the player end, giving players the opportunity again to spend their time with an actual personal development coach that can actually get them the results and help them scale their development in a much faster rate. So that's exactly how things are on the game end. Now, some of you may also be asking about, okay, well, what about defense, right? So our indoor games won't have defense. However, our outdoor games will have defense options. Now, what I mean by that is, since our game structure is specifically focused on hitters and pitchers, if, let's just say, for instance, we have one player that plays on one of our teams, right? And then there's other teams that are playing games that are only specifically focused on hitting and pitching. This one player that I'm talking about that's on a different team can, again, optionally come to one of our outdoor games, and they can play the defensive position for the entire time while the other players are focused on hitting or pitching. So they can also utilize that time in another game to get their defensive work in. But again, since we fully advocate for players to have their own personal development coach, we would also advocate for you to find a defensive coach if that is what you would like to do. Our stat tracking model specifically focuses on hitting quality and pitching quality. So here's what I mean by that. Let's just say, for instance, as an example, there's a hitter that hits in a tournament, and let's just say, for instance, he gets a total of 10 at-bats, okay? And within the 10 at-bats, he gets 3 hits, okay? But within those 3 hits, the hitter maybe only got like one actual solid quality hit from the 3 hits. And I'm talking about like an actual hard hit. Whereas his other 2 hits may have been like really soft contact, little dinkers that barely just reach the outfield or whatever it is, okay? As an example, all right? So if you look at the typical stat sheet, that would show that the hitter had a 300 batting average, right? On paper, that looks really good. However, when it comes to measuring the quality of contact that hitter created, it really wasn't all that, okay? And then I'll use another example. Let's just say, for instance, a different hitter gets the same 10 at-bats, and let's say, for instance, in 5 of his at-bats, he actually hit the ball really, really hard, but he got really unlucky and essentially nothing to show for it. And he ended up only getting 1 hit in the entire tournament, the entire 10 at-bats that he got. So technically, his batting average would be 100, but that hitter wouldn't be able to see an entire picture of his actual performance, because if you compare both hitters, the hitter that hit the ball hard 5 times compared to the hitter that hit the ball hard only 1 time with 2 hits, from a projection standpoint, that hitter that hit the ball hard 5 times has much better projectability when it comes to his future in baseball. Okay, so from that standpoint, those are the types of things that we're measuring for hitters. We're measuring their hard hit percentage, like what I just told you. We're measuring their barrel percentage, which basically means that they need to make sure that they're hitting the ball hard and then within a certain degree of launch angle, because it's essentially those specific stats essentially showcase that if they're able to do that consistently, they also give themselves the best chance of having extra base hits in the future and just getting really good quality balls that are hit in the gap to give them, like I said, the availability to get extra base hit. And from a pitcher's perspective, we're basically measuring the same thing as the hitters, except obviously pitchers are wanting to make sure that they're not allowing hitters to hit the ball hard off of them and doing that consistently, right? So we're measuring pitchers' weak contact rate and measuring the average exit velo that is typically being hit off of pitchers. We're measuring their hard hit percentage against, which obviously from a pitcher's standpoint would relatively need to be low if they're performing well. And so again, these are just examples of some of the stats. There's other things that we take as well, like what is a pitcher's whiff rate in terms of how often does a pitcher get a hitter to swing and miss, because that's what, that's a good indicator of pitcher having pretty good stuff and pretty good pitching capabilities as well. So again, from a pitching standpoint, that's an example from the pitching end of how we're measuring things, because those things being measured help the pitchers understand where they stand from a pitching standpoint. And these types of things can also be used in not only in their development, because if there's some things that are off, you can use these data points to show their own personal developmental coach and use them to make certain adjustments if they need to. And then also it can also help in getting pitchers to also be better understanding in where they are and help showcase them in a way, because if they're doing really good, the numbers are going to show that as well. So in conclusion, that was a summary of how the Alonzo Baseball League works. We really want to emphasize the kids' development first over winning, because as most of everybody knows, the biggest emphasis on youth baseball right now is having more of an emphasis on winning more than anything else. Okay, and to prove that, other than the emphasis and the incentive on teams winning rings if they win a tournament, if you think about it, most teams have tryouts to have a team. Why? Why is that? Because if most teams actually emphasize development, they really wouldn't care about having tryouts, because if they were development first, they would take any kid and have the emphasis on developing every single kid that they get. But they don't do that. They have tryouts, they cut kids that are not good enough, and they go from there and they enroll in tournaments to win tournaments. And that just further proves that they're all about winning first, right? So with the way travel baseball is and youth baseball in general, it's in a crux right now in my opinion. And I just wanted to offer something that gives parents and kids the opportunity to essentially enjoy their time that's spent on baseball and also help both ends of the spectrum as well, right? And I just want to conclude with this. One of my mentors gave me a quote, and it's something that's really stuck with me. And he told me that the biggest difference between amateurs and professionals comes down to the way they prepare. And he said that amateurs spend more time performing than they do preparing. Meanwhile, professionals spend more time preparing than they do performing. And that stuck home with me. And that's something that I saw, especially with how youth baseball is nowadays, that you can really have an understanding of how it applies to that quote as well. And so, again, I just want to give players the opportunity to really spend most of their time preparing, so that when it comes to performing, they can be more than ready and have no doubts about where they're at when it is time for them to perform.